Hello there. My name is Sadie, and I'm here to talk to you and give you some support on these research tasks that we've asked you to do. So, first of all, you'll see that my screen matches what's in front of you. So, we're asking you to research some sociological terms. So you can use the internet, but we just ask, it's really important that you just make a note of any of the sources that you've used. So you just pop in there where you've got any information from. So this independent research task is obviously just to assess where you are, but also this will help support you with one of the activities that you have to do as part of your assessments. So we've asked you to research what a norm is, what is a value, socialization, what do you mean by socialization, and culture. So just to give you some context, in sociology, we argue that norms are unwritten rules that govern our behaviour. So they're unwritten rules that govern behaviour. And we generally see those unwritten rules as actions. So, for example, a norm is to brush your teeth. It's an unwritten rule that you brush your teeth twice a day. It's a norm that when you're handed something, you say thank you. So that's what I mean when I say a norm is an action. Saying thank you, saying please, brushing your teeth, or physically holding the door open for someone. That's a norm. It's an unwritten rule that governs how we behave and how we think other people should behave. Also, when you're driving along in a car and you can't say please and thank you, so you give the little hand gesture. Those are norms, those are unwritten rules. Okay, just to give you some help and support there. And a value is a belief within society. So, for example, you say thank you, which is the norm, because of a belief that you should be polite. So a value is like the belief or the reason. So you say thank you, which is the norm, because of a belief that you should be polite. Or you say thank you, again, because of a belief you should be kind and polite. Norm, unwritten rule, value is a belief. Socialization is generally the process of learning. How do we learn to say please and to say thank you? And culture is made up of multiple terms. So culture is the norm, the unwritten rules. It's the values within that society. It's also things like customs or traditions. So generally in the UK, brides wear white, but also take husband's name would be customs or traditions. So I'm going to pause there for a second just to give you a moment to now do a little bit of additional research on those 4 terms and pop it into your own words and cite any sources. Okay, thank you for completing that. So the second thing we're asking you to do is to research 2 different societies' norms and values. So you've got what's a norm, what's a value, what's socialization and culture. And now we want you to just look at 2 different societies and what are their different norms and values, or if they're at all similar. So for example, the UK, so a norm is brush your teeth, you say please, you say thank you, hold the door open. Those are all the norms. And the values are because you should be clean and because you should be polite. So the norms and values of British or UK society. And then, however, what I'd compare that with is the norms and values of Japanese cultures or Japanese societies. So for example, it's the social norm in Japan not to tip. So unlike in American culture, it's the norm in Japan not to tip. So there's quite a lot of metal trays everywhere. But the other social norm in Japan is cash is not exchanged between people. So I don't hand you £1,000 yen and you touch it. I put the money down on the metal tray and you take it. So the norm is you don't exchange cash, you don't touch cash, and you don't tip. It's also the norm in Japan that with your hands, it's very common to hand business cards, and it's the social norm that you carry that business card, or when you take it, you look at it with both, hold it with both hands, and you look at it. So social norms of Japanese society. Again, another social norm is bowing rather than shaking hands, and again, that's because of the value or belief that one should be polite. So I'm just giving you some support there to look at two different societies. You can choose whatever two you'd like, but to discuss the norms and values of both of them in that number 2 activity. Okay, so I'm just going to pause there a second, again, give you a chance to, again, research. You can look on the internet, but just make sure you're putting it in your own words and just making a note where you cite those sources. Thanks. Okay, the third and final activity is to compare and contrast two societies' cultural differences. So culture is made up of norms, unwritten rules. It's made up of values, so beliefs within that wider society. And it's made up of customs or traditions. So what we want you to do here, you can use the same two societies you've used in number 2, but we want you to compare those two societies' cultural differences. So here we want you to maybe look at, again, some norms and some values, but also things like customs. So, for example, in Japanese society, just to give examples from the previous one, it is a custom that you take your shoes off when you enter somebody's house. So it's tradition, you take off shoes when you enter somebody's house. And normally slippers are provided when you do this. That's actually very similar of my experience of norms or customs within British society, that when you enter somebody's home, you take off your shoes, and that's a custom or a tradition within similar within both of those cultures or societies. However, in Japanese cultures, a custom or a tradition is that if you are sick, you wear a mask. So if you've got a cough or a cold or you're feeling unwell, it is the custom or tradition that you wear a mask the entire time you feel poorly, on trains, as you're walking in the street, when you're at work. And that's actually quite different to British cultural societies where we don't do that, we just carry on. Customs or traditions, when it comes to British society, as I said to you, is tradition when if people marry, that brides wear white, and also that it's very traditional for a wife to take husband's name. And again, you can give comparisons that, again, it's true in other cultures. For example, Japanese culture, again, women wear white. So you're comparing where it's very, very similar, and also highlighting when there's any key differences. So, for example, again, there's customs on trains. So in Japan, there are carriages that are silent carriages, and expected that there is no noise at all that takes place. There's also women-only carriages as part of Japanese customs. This isn't true on UK travel. So generally they're much noisier, and again, they're mixed, and there isn't the focus on silence and not having any conversations at all, making sure phones are on silent. So again, in the UK, you would answer your telephone when it went off. In Japanese silent only carriages, your phone wouldn't go off, and there would be no talking at all. So we want you to take two societies. Again, you can use the ones you've done in number 2 and highlight where it's very similar, and highlight any differences in culture, which again is customs or traditions, also things like norms and values. Okay, thank you so much.